Manager and AI coding. Let's see what that's all about. Says how Google's Dev Tool Manager makes AI coding work. That's can you see the trend here, right? We were just talking about how Rod Brown is now the czar of AI, right? For the entire world. He might not know that, but he is the AI czar for the entire world, right? And then we talk about the data centers that OpenAI, Oracle, Nvidia are all invested in some way, shape, or form. And now we get into how Google's DevTools Manager makes AI coding work. It's all interconnected. It's like a web, like a weave, like a web of weave. It sounds terrible, but it's like a web of weave, all right? So, so how Google's DevTools Manager makes AI coding work is as Google's project manager for developer tools, Ryan Salva has a new front row seat to the ways AI tools are changing coding. Formerly of GitHub and Microsoft, he's now responsible for tools like Gemini CLI and Gemini Code Assistant. Yo, you know what? I was. Let me see something real quick. I was. Let's see. When I was working on the spec flow today, I ended up installing Gemini CLI without actually knowing what it was. But apparently it's a coding assistant. So I'm gonna have to do a deep dive. Maybe next week we'll deep dive into Gemini CLI to see how that works, right? But for tools like Gemini CLI and Gemini Code Assist, nudging developers into the new world of agentic programming. Oh my god. I use Gemini, like I've shown you guys before how I use Gemini to help me with my code. I am yet to use the Gemini CLI though, so I have to go and take a look at that one a little bit more. I just found out about Gemini CLI today, when I was working on the spec flow. So we'll do some more investigation in that. Says his team released new third-party research on Tuesday showing how developers actually use AI tools and how much progress is left to make. I sat down with Salva to talk about the report and his personal experience with AI coding tools. I'm sure they've seen the way that I've been using just the Gemini front end to systematically go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth to help me figure out about kilos, to help me get ideas, to help me fix code stuff. The I'm telling you, the way that I use Gemini is absolutely fascinating, all right? For me to figure out a lot of things. It says, this interview is edited for length and clarity. How long is it? I don't know how long this is, but I don't know. We might not read the whole entire thing. It says, every year Google does a survey of developer trends, but this year the report really focuses on AI tools and specifically how agentic developers are willing to get in their approach to programming. Was there anything in the research that surprised you? One of the really interesting findings was the median date when developers started using AI tools. They found it was April 2024. Did I start using AI tools? I mine was way later than April 2024, which corresponds fairly neatly to Claude 3 coming out and Gemini 2.5 coming out. This is really the dawn of the reasoning or thinking model, and around that same time, we got much better at tool calling. Let me think. I was using ChatGPT mainly last year to do a lot of stuff, but not really for coding though. As for coding tasks, you really need to be able to leverage external information in order to problem solve. So it may need to grep, it may need to compile the code. If the code compiles, it may want to run that unit test and that integration test. I think that tool calling really is the important piece that gave models the ability to self-correct. How are you using AI? So to the next question, how are you using AI tools personally? Let's see. Saint of Vice. What's up, Saint of Vice? How are you doing today? Shout out to you. Let's see here. Let's see. It says, how are you using AI coding tools personally? Let's see. Most of my so this is the Salva person says most of my coding these days is for hobby projects, and I spend most of my time using command line based tools. So that includes Gemini CLI. Then there's a little bit of Cloud Code, little bit of Codex in there, and you don't ever really use a terminal based tool by itself. So I'm really heterogeneous around the IDEs that I use. I use Zed, I use VS Code, I use Cursor, I use Windsurf, all of them, because I'm interested in just seeing how the world works and how the industry is evolving. Okay. On the professional side, product managers tend to live in documents. So the first thing is using AI to help me write the specifications and requirements documentations. Look, I am pushing the people that I work with to use AI to help, like, stop spending so much time on the work that's like busy work. I say describe what you want it to, like, describe the story and have it write the story out for you, then clean it up. Instead of like spending 30 minutes on getting a story in the right way, just describe it in like 3 to 5 minutes. Have it generate the story for you, and just remove some stuff that you don't need or add some stuff that you do need, and spend like 5 to 10 minutes on a story instead of 30 minutes on, you know. 'Cause on the professional side, product managers tend to live to all right, we read that, right? Um and I'm curious how that works. You're using Gemini CLI to build Gemini I'm curious how that works. You're using Gemini CLI to build Gemini CLI, but I wouldn't imagine it doesn't just run itself. Um, a development task will usually start as an issue. Maybe it's a GitHub issue that someone's dropped with a bug. Often, I'm really being honest. If I'm really being honest, it's a fairly underspecified issue. So I'll use Gemini CLI in order to create a more robust requirement doc in Markdown. Wow, this information is golden, right? Seeing how a top Google product person uses AI to enhance their workflow, right? That will usually create a probably about 100 lines of fairly technical, but also outcome-driven specification. Then I will use Gemini CLI to write the code base based on that specification and the general preferences in the team documents. Ban that. Get that out of there. All right. Okay, let's see. Across the engineering team, we have a couple of different layers of rules and markdown docs that get consumed by the model, just laying out our way of working. Here's how we do the testing. Here's how we manage the dependencies and so on. So when it produces the code, it's working from those doc. Oh my God. So when we get into spec kit, this is outlining the way that we should use it. How to do the spec-driven development. All right. And as Gemini CLI is going through and doing the troubleshooting, I'll have uh, I'll have it update my requirements doc and saying I fixed this step. Now I'm on to the next step, and so on. Each of those creates its own commit and pull request into the repository, so I can always rewind or undo. Oh, that is genius. That is so smart. I would say probably 70 to 80% of my work is me working in the terminal with natural language, trying to use Gemini CLI to craft the requirements, and then allowing Gemini CLI to write most of the code for me, which I will then go review and read with whatever IDE I happen to be using. But mostly I'm using the IDE as a place to read the code rather than write the document. That is so awesome. Let me see. Saint advices. I'm unsure I am unsure to use AI to start coding though. So I would say, let me put this on the screen. Let me fix this real quick. I would say that being unsure how to use AI to start coding. So I think it depends on what you want to start coding. Um, here's would be my recommendation, right? If you want to use AI to start coding, I would probably say start with a platform like Lovable, which makes it really, really, really easy to start. Where you can go and like just write out what type of application that you want to build, and then like put a very, very detailed prompt. What do you want? How you want it to look? All that stuff, right? And then have it create a prototype for you, and then you just tell it what you want it to do, and then you start plugging things in. I also recommend, right, if somebody wanted to actually build an application, even if you're using AI, I think it's still very important to learn the technology, learn the concepts, right? So that you can actually understand what it's doing and then you can contribute to it. Because It's the same way, like if you have a business company and you have no, and like you just hire somebody and you have no idea what they're doing, if it's right or wrong, they're gonna take advantage of you. And not that AI is gonna take a quote unquote advantage of you, but you're gonna be left in the dark. You're gonna be missing out on a lot of things. So I say that you still want to learn it, but I would say start with Lovable. See, like have it create you a prototype and stuff like that, and then you can see all the really, really cool things that you can do with it, and you can go from there. So that'd be my recommendation for it. All right, let's continue. How much? This is almost to start. It says, "Do you think there is a future for raw computer code, or will we just move everything into the terminal windows? Terminal windows. For 3 decades, the IDE was where we went to do everything in software development. You had the IDE, you had the browser, you had the terminal window. I think that's still largely the case, but I suspect that over time, we'll end up spending a lot more time working with the requirements, and the amount of time spent in the IDE will gradually shrink." That is interesting. I think that change may actually happen over a pretty long time. Okay, so it doesn't think it's going to be that soon. There's a lot of angst about what that means for software development as a progression. If 10 years from now, we are no longer looking at code, what does that mean for developers? Will there still be a job for them? The uncomfortable question. I think that your job as a developer is going to look a lot more like being an architect, which is the architect is the foundation of everything, right? It's going to be about taking big complex problems and breaking them down into smaller solvable tasks. You'll need to be thinking about you need to be thinking about like the bigger picture about what you're trying to produce, rather than the intermediate language in order to express that in machine code. And that's it. That is it. Whew, that's serious. What do you guys think? Rod Brown, if you're still Rod Brown, what do you think about what? Let me see. What is his position again? He is the Google's project manager for developer tools, Ryan Salva. That's his thoughts. I'm curious, what do you guys think about this? I am fascinated by the way that he's using these tools to drive the spec-driven development, and the fact that we're going to be exploring Spec Kit tomorrow and spec-driven development tomorrow. I think that it's going to set us up very, very well for our life, and that we're going to be working on that. All right.
You said it was Mandy, but it's still the same. Words like bandages that don't stop the pain. I held your words like glass in my hands, sharp truths and smooth demands. You said you meant the cracks I see, but promises break so easily. I trusted the stars, but they all fell down. Every promise made just spins around. The truth feels fake, the lies too real. I'm caught in the loop, I can't unfeel.
I reach, but it slips away. Truths turn shadows in the light of day.
I don't know what to believe.